ఇక జీఈ సదస్సులో రెండో రోజు ప్యానెల్ డిబేట్ జరుగుతోంది. కేటీఆర్ మోడరేటర్గా వ్యవహరిస్తున్నారు. ఇందులో ప్రస్తుతానికి అక్కడి నుంచి లైవ్ చూద్దాం.
And through technology and big data, this platform continues to be smarter and smarter and smarter. And our goal is to enable millions of women that can get the access to the skills, the training, and everything that Cherie and her foundation are helping to enable. So I think technology can really help there.
Technology, practical solutions, sacrifices, and the wonderful work that your foundation is doing. My compliments. Let me turn back to Ivanka. Ivanka, a McKinsey Global Institute study shows that if we are able to close this workforce gap by 12%, we would actually be increasing the world's GDP by 25% by 2025. And it also, another interesting fact that this throws up, women in top leadership positions and boards actually enjoy greater financial return.
For other young people who, or not so young people, who want to become CEOs as well. So taking programs like SCORE. We've talked about inadequate access to capital, which happens domestically, unfortunately, as well. When you look at our participation or our share of venture capital funding is minuscule, 3% last year. We're trying to fix that by A, raising awareness about this issue, but B, increasing our lending through the Small Business Administration. In 2017, we increased the amount of lending to women-led firms by over $500 million year to date alone. So that's exciting. And then internationally, where the barriers are the same but far greater, oftentimes with a cultural or legal overlay that makes it particularly challenging. So one of the initiatives we launched, and there's so many great initiatives across government. I'm leaving this stage and going to the State Department run GIST competition, which maybe some of the entrepreneurs here today will be participating. You will? Amazing. It's a pitch competition to support investment in great entrepreneurs around the globe doing very innovative things. But there's so many different programs. But this summer we launched something that was very extraordinary. We were founding members with 14 other countries of a World Bank initiative called WeFi, and it seeks to address a number of the things we've mentioned: access to capital, access to networks, access to mentorship, and access to equitable laws by pushing governments in developing worlds to lower barriers and change the laws that prohibit women from full participation in their economies. So WeFi is very exciting, and we anticipate being able to leverage in excess of $1 billion to go to female entrepreneurs in the developing world. So we're hopeful that has a profound effect on the ecosystem of women's entrepreneurship generally, but also for the benefit of women in the workforce as well. Because it was noted here that when you invest in women, they invest back into their families, back into their communities. They say 90 cents on the dollar earned by a woman goes right back into her family and community, and back into things like education, into healthcare, into things that will create a positive generational impact. So we're very excited about that initiative and all the other ways we can fuel the exciting work that's being done in the entrepreneurship ecosystem at home and abroad.
Congratulations.
Can I ask you, because
Absolutely.
Ivanka, that 90 cent figure is a very interesting one, but I want to ask you as a man, what do you think the equivalent figure is for a man?
40?
Well,
He was supposed to answer that.
I'm the moderator. I'm supposed to be asking you questions. Anyways, I think it must be around 40.
Yeah, no. It's 30.
30.
30.
All right. As always, women are the smarter ones anyways.
40. But you know what I think?
I was trying to
But do you know what I think about that? You see, I think there are plenty of men who also invest 90% of their efforts into their family and into their community. And the problem is that there are some men, my own father was one of these men, because he abandoned my mother and my sister and myself and never supported us ever again. who'd only put, 1%, if you're lucky, into their families. And the question really is for men is, why is it that we tolerate the idea that these men who go off and spend their lives on wine, women and song, somehow that's acceptable? The men who put 90% of their efforts into their families should be speaking out more loudly and saying these men that don't do that actually are letting us all down, rather than just shrugging their shoulders and saying, oh, well, women, they do 90%, we do 30 to 40 as men, but that's okay. Because actually, it isn't really okay, is it?
It's true, and I think this is something, Sherry, that I'm glad you brought up, but I'm actually very optimistic about, because I see the landscape changing, and especially when you look at the next generation coming up. I think women don't view themselves as purely providing care for their families. They want to work. In many cases, they need to work to support their families. Men, similarly, are taking a much more active approach in raising children and participating in the family than in previous generations as well. And we see this happening on different scales, but all over the world. And I see this generational shift that is very exciting, because when you think about true equality, it starts with having this level playing field and sharing the responsibilities, domestic responsibilities, as well as workplace responsibilities much more equitably. So I love the natural shift that we have happening, but I think talking about these issues, and I think men talking about the fact that they're not financial providers alone, that they want to participate, that they want to be involved parents and fathers is incredibly important as well.
Now that you raised a very personal question, let me throw a quick question to all of you. I've learned that all of you are privileged to have a daughter, also each of you. I have an 8-year-old daughter also. So what would you say is the single most important thing that you would like to see changed? We talked about multiple things. We talked about capacity, we talked about confidence, we talked about mentorship, we talked about collaboration with the private sector, we talked about rural sector. What is that one single important thing from a government and from the societal perspective that you would like to see differently, say, a decade from now? We'll start with you, Ivanka, and then we'll move on to others. We have about 5 minutes, so let's make this crisp.
Well, I think I have a 6-year-old daughter, and I'm actually trying to get rid of some of her confidence. But I think the purity of a young girl and the lack of assumption around what her role is, what she should do, what she shouldn't do, what she should like, what she shouldn't like, the longer we can preserve that, the better. So I'm always inspired by my daughter, because she makes me realize how many ingrained biases even I have that I don't realize that I'm accidentally putting on one of my children, my sons or my daughters. So I think look at our smallest children and see the world as much like they see it as humanly possible. And hopefully Arabella grows up in a world where she's never told she can't do something because of her gender. Certainly, she'll never be told that by her mother.
Fantastic. A big round of applause, please. Ingrained bias, which is even within all of us. Tell me about it. I'm a man, so I'm obviously going to have a little bit more of that. Chanda, a quick point on what you would like to see differently a decade from now, the single most important thing.
Well, as you said, we all have daughters. I have a daughter, and I think the proudest thing for me to say is that while today here I'm sitting as a panel member, my daughter's sitting here in her own right as a woman entrepreneur,
Can we
as
have
a
her stand
delegate
up here, please? Miss Kocher's daughter.
There she is.
A big round of applause to the young lady. What's her name? What's her name, Chanda?
Aarti.
Aarti. Yeah. Many congratulations, Aarti.
But what I say is that for me, my biggest inspiration are my children. And, why is my daughter my biggest inspiration? Because I think at her age, I expected my mother to do so many more things for me than what she expects her mother to do, because she doesn't find the mother around.
She's a strong young lady.
So much around. So I think it is about, this is an entrepreneurship summit, so I would say it is about 3 E's for women. education, encouragement, and empowerment.
Education, encouragement, and empowerment. Big round of applause.
If we do that, I think sky's the limit for all women.
Fantastic. Sherry, your thoughts on what the single most important thing is that you'd like to see differently a decade from now?
Well, I've got a daughter and I've also got 3 sons. And if you were to ask me, you know, what's the most important thing for my daughter, I think the most important thing is actually to marry well. And if you
choose the right partner.
Choose the right partner. And therefore, when I talk about what I want to see for my daughter, I actually think more about my sons, because as a mother of 3 sons and 1 daughter, I have to actually think, how am I bringing up my sons? And for a long time, my main concern was that one day my boys would come to me and say, Mum, here's my girl that I'm going to marry, and I want to let you know that she's going to stay at home and look after me. Fortunately, that hasn't happened. My youngest is only 17,